Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is John Bishop with John Bishop Fine Art, and you're listening to Conversations with Freelance Creatives. Let's see, a whole lot's going on this week. I wanted to catch up with you. In fact, I'm a little late posting this week. I apologize. There's just a whole lot going on, and as you probably experience in your own life, when it rains, it pours, and let's face it, after a year and something of COVID, we needed a little rain. So it's actually very, very good news to have a lot going on. Let's see, one of the things we've got is we have studios at Silver Street Studios in Houston, Texas. And one of the benefits of being in a large kind of a cooperative space like that is that there are lots of exhibition opportunities that come our way because we're tenants at the Sawyer Yards and specifically in our buildings, the Silver Street Studios building. So there's a new exhibition that just went up this weekend. It's called Artists of Silver Street. And there's probably 40, 50 artists that are participating. We fill the whole hallways. So that was a big undertaking to get the exhibition all up and hung and curated to the degree that it is. And I had 3 pieces, and then I was able, because we didn't fill the back hallways, I was able to add another 3. So I have 5 pieces in the show. And the first day it opened, on Saturday, I sold 1. So that was very, very good news. It doesn't happen every time, but actually it does happen every time we've had an exhibition. I've sold something off the wall. So that's good news. Good way to start the show. So I slapped that puppy off the wall and put up a new painting. Hopefully we'll sell more. So that started. We are also able to participate in a group show that is a selected group of 10 artists from the building, and they're calling it's a tenant show, so they're calling it 10 Ants. Get it? 10 Ant Show. Anyway, there are 10 of us who've been invited to exhibit, and that exhibition won't start until September. But that's quite an honor to have been chosen. So we're actually starting to meet already. One of the new things at the building is that they've created a small exhibition space. It was just really a back loading dock area. They fixed it up, and they're letting artists in the building exhibit. And the first one to exhibit in that space is Adam Land. He's one of the artists at the building. Wonderful abstract painter. Very, very technical, very, very professional in his delivery, very slick all around. Adam does great work, and we had his opening this week. So that was very exciting. We were able to see his work, and also he's the first one to use this space. I have the space in July, so I was able to kind of get some ideas on how to inaugurate the space, how to decorate the space, how to curate the space for an exhibition and a reception. So that's coming up for me as well. So congratulations, Adam. He'll be up all month. We also belong to a photographic club called HIP, the Houston Interloop Photography Club. And we've been members of that organization for a while. And we did a presentation this week on Bogdan's collection called Inheritance. So we were able to share with the group in a presentation on Zoom about that particular collection of photography. So that all took some planning. And then I found out that I'm in a residency program that's actually a virtual residency program because no one can travel because of COVID. So I'm in this program in Mexico City called Proyectos de Residencia, and it's Michael Swank is the director of that program. He has a gallery in Mexico City as well as this residency program. And he also collaborates with Dab Art, who has galleries in California and in Mexico. So they're mounting a show for the participants in the residency program. I was not chosen to be in the physical show. There's just not enough space, and other artists were chosen. But I have been chosen to participate on the presentation in Artsy, which is a pretty big deal. I've never been on Artsy before. Artsy is an online platform for fine art that is pretty sophisticated. You have to be through a gallery to get in, and sales are usually pretty good through Artsy. It's kind of legitimate. And because of the connection with Michael and Dab Art, they have memberships to Artsy, and so I'll be included in that show starting this weekend for a month, or more than a month. It goes until June, I think. So that's pretty exciting. And then to find out that his gallery in Mexico City was actually just now included as part of the Zona Maco. Zona Maco is the big art festival in Mexico City, which is the biggest festival in the country. That is starting latter part of this month into May. And so his gallery is now included. So there will be busloads of people. He's now on the directory. He's on the schedule. They will bus VIPs around to the different galleries. So even though I don't have work hanging on the wall, I will be represented by postcards with my art and participating artist table. So hopefully it'll get some notoriety to the program and to the gallery, and hopefully to those of us who are involved with it. So that's going on. And then, as I mentioned, I'm getting ready for this show in July in the space that Adam is using now. And I'm going to turn that, it's my first solo exhibition, so I'm going to turn that into kind of the official launch of my professional art career, though I've been doing this for several years. But I've never had my own show before. And so I said, this is a great time to launch a legacy series. And so I've chosen the theme Pancamarga, or I think it pronounced Pankmar, but that's a Sanskrit word. It's a Buddhist concept that there is a five-stage path toward perfection. And I chose that because the number 5 is important. Every 5 years, I will have an exhibition for the next 5, for a period of 5 of those. So the period of 20 years. And so I will have an exhibition this year, and then in 5 years, and 5 years, and 5 years, until I'm 80 years old. Now, Lord knows if I live that long, hopefully I will. But the idea that I'm actually inaugurating a series that will track my progression as a professional artist. And that's the idea behind it. So I'm pretty excited. I'm just still in the developing stages. I've got some of the pieces already done. It's going to be a hard road to get this all ready by July. And then, of course, on top of that, I'm doing the blog and the vlog and this podcast. I do Bogdan and I do a weekly presentation of our art called Art Chat on Zoom. So there's just a whole lot going on. But what I wanted to talk about today is, the role of an artist. We wear so many hats. And the role of an artist as an office manager. And that's really important because I looked up the definition of an office manager and it just blew me away. I mean, it's everything, right? It's all the logistics, all of the safety issues, all of the legal issues, the building issues, all of the supplies, all of the organization, all of the record keeping, all folds into this one job. And if you look at any company, that's a full-time job, maybe a whole department that actually functions as business manager. And what is it in our small art businesses or creative businesses? It's us. And if you're like me, the fact that I don't do business management every single day, all day long, that means that I'm a little rusty at it. It's not something that's so slick and easy for me to do. I used to do that when I worked in public libraries, largely as a branch manager. I was an office manager of that building and was responsible for those kinds of duties. And so you get into a pattern. Well, it's harder to get into a pattern when you're all by yourself. Oh, by the way, and also doing all the sales and marketing and, oh, yes, actually making art. So it's hard to keep those skills and that important job of office management done when you're doing everything else at the same time. And it becomes tremendously important because if you don't do that kind of work, you end up either working harder or you're not prepared for things when they happen. I mean, somebody has to buy the printer paper. Somebody has to buy the printer cartridges. Somebody has to make sure there are pens and pencils. And somebody has to make sure that all of the kind of legal and organizational things that have to happen before you start a new project actually happen. We have a good example. Just for doing this kind of, in January, we started doing all this social media outreach, including this podcast. And one of the things we realized is that in order for us to do this, I had to take on a lot of the responsibility for editing the video and audio portions because Bogdan already is busy enough. So I'm learning new skills at the same time. But what we realized pretty quickly as we began to plan this last year was that actually my computer was it was too old. It wasn't sophisticated enough to run some of the complicated software packages that we needed to edit this footage and audio. And so in order to proceed down this path, we had to go and buy a really an expensive computer for me so that I could do some of the editing. That was unplanned. We didn't want to go and buy a new computer. My computer, I was using it to do spreadsheets and emails. It worked fine for that, but it couldn't handle editing video and audio. So that kind of planning made us ready to start this new venture of ours in January when we wanted to start. Otherwise, we would have been delayed even further. So that kind of organization is key. And in fact, most of what I configure, most of what office management boils down to is that organization. And we've talked in the past about being organized as artists and being organized as entrepreneurs and being organized with record keeping and filing systems. And this goes into that same kind of organizational need. Organization is key, but it can be overwhelming, right? I mean, there's so much to do, and as I say, we don't always do it every day, that it's sometimes better to break things down into bite-sized pieces so that you don't get overwhelmed. You make a to-do list, and I don't know if this has happened to you, I sometimes have a to-do list that I look down and I start to have an anxiety attack because the to-do list is so expansive. If that starts to happen, I now take a Post-it note and I write down the 5 things that I must do today. And I put that Post-it note on top of my to-do list. And I look at those 5. I don't necessarily look at everything else, not right away anyway, until I finish those 5 things. You've probably heard presentations, if not, just Google it, that the whole idea of it's a learning tool, an educational tool, where people will take a jar and they have big rocks and they have pebbles or gravel, and they will, you have to put it all into the jar. And if you put in the gravel first, the small pebbles first, then the big rocks don't fit. And if you do put in, the big rocks go in first, and you pour the gravel over the top or the pebbles over the top, they fill in around the larger stones and it all fits into the jar. The lesson being obviously that you need to be able to look at the big things, the big projects, the big issues first, and then worry about the smaller things. I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm sure you have. I can sometimes stay so busy all day long doing all kinds of tasks, and at the end of the day I'm exhausted, I feel like I've worked my butt off all day long, and I really haven't accomplished much. That's the whole purpose of of that lesson with the big rocks and small rocks. So plan in your organization. Be sure to prioritize your big rocks. Going through the planning early and realizing that we needed to buy a computer saved us from being delayed later on, because it never occurred to us that my computer couldn't handle this new software or the latest software. So that organization, prioritizing large things first, creating to-do lists so that you don't just have things falling off the side. In fact, very recently, when I was doing kind of the research for this, I was going through my inbox and I found a check that it was for $7. It was for a refund for something to do with insurance. I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't for very much money, but I completely forgot to deposit it for a couple of months. That's, not a good thing. So now what I've done is I have my inbox, but I have a separate inbox for deposits. And hopefully that'll help that, keep that from happening again. And I think the way I usually approach that is when I find that I've done something dumb or something has happened that was unexpected, I come up with a solution for that problem then to hopefully keep that from happening in the future. So centralize. Centralize everything you do. Make sure that you do have an inbox and make it a big one. And everything goes into that inbox. Don't have a pile on your desk at the studio and a pile by your bed at home, and put all those things in an inbox and go through it routinely so you know where everything is. If you can have, we talked about this before, if you can have a dedicated space to do your kind of business work, your grunt work for the running of the business, that would be great as well. I tend to do all of those things at the studio. So when I do work from home, I tend to get things confused. So organization and centralization is really good. If you're not using Google Drive, I would suggest that as well. It's a great way to keep everything that you need and have it wherever you are. So if you're on a job, if you're at a client, if you're working in the studio, or if you're at home, or if you're on holiday, you can still get to all of your information. Google Drive does have a bit of a downside because it can get really, really confusing. You have to be really good at setting up files and triage things and organize so that it doesn't just become a big dumping ground for a bunch of loose files, so that you can actually find things in this. But Google Drive has been a staple for me. And another thing we've talked about before is being honest with yourself and knowing yourself well enough. Do you recognize when you are getting in too deep? I talked about all the things that are going on with us. And do you recognize in yourself when you're starting to feel stress, when you're starting to feel overwhelmed? And what do you do about it when you notice that? So this week I've been pretty stressed out. Today is Friday. I usually do this particular podcast on a Wednesday. I'm late. I'm late on everything this week. And I started to realize that stress level was shooting up last weekend because we had an open day. And I said, okay, I need to, back off on some things, reprioritize some things. Because when I'm shot emotionally, mentally, then I'm no good for the business at all. And I'm certainly not creative. So what are those signs that we tend to retreat when we're under stress? We tend to retreat to certain activities that make us feel more comfortable, where we're happiest, where we're most comfortable. Mine is drawing. If I notice that I'm spending a lot of time drawing, then a good chance that I might be kind of trying to escape into some other happy place. That's generally not a problem as an artist, by the way. Drawing is a good thing, and I'm not saying that I shouldn't be drawing. But when I feel that I have things to do and I find that instead I'm drawing, that is a symbol, or that's a sign for me that there's something else going on. I know myself well enough to have recognized that. In fact, it was an employee who brought that to my attention years ago when I was working in libraries. If I started doing a lot of illustration for the newsletter or for signage around the library, she's like, John's drawing again. I think he's stressed out. That was really, really remarkable of her and gave me a huge insight to myself. Learn about those things in yourself. Learn when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're starting to feel stressed. What are the signs, and can you recognize them and be honest enough with yourself to recognize them and then start to deal with that? My solution this week was, you know what? If I put this out on Friday, Saturday instead of Wednesday, the sky's not going to fall. Hopefully, none of you would be upset. So I appreciate your patience with me this week. The other thing about organization, and particularly with kind of office management kind of duties, is that they're largely reactive. And we talked a minute ago about the fact that you can be working really, really hard on small stuff that doesn't matter. And it's all important because you're reacting to what comes through the email, you're reacting to what comes through the door. But if you can save time to do things that you're not just reacting to, those big rocks again, if you can schedule time to do that kind of strategic planning, that will help a lot with this feeling of just being reactive to what comes through the email. Or whatever the latest fire is in your world. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I used to live in the country, and my place was only 20 acres. People who live in the country on large ranches, they ride the fence. I walked my fence. Every day when I would come home from work, I would walk the fence, unless it was raining. And that meant that the dog and the cat and sometimes a horse would follow me around. But I would walk the fence line. It was a lovely walk. And I kind of got a sense of what was going on the land. Anything developing, any of the fences damaged, anything growing, are there new animals I haven't discovered? Is there a problem? I just walked the fence. And I did that when I was in libraries as well. As a library manager, I would get to the job site and I would walk the building inside and out. And I would realize, okay, you know what? There are homeless people that have kind of moved in outside. I need to deal with that. Or, you know, there's an employee who has a power strip that is absolutely overloaded with plugs. I need to help this, I need to get this person some more energy, some more power to their desk. I would be able to look around for safety issues. I'd be able to look around for backlogs of work that was piled up. I was able to see any issues, with the building itself. Learn how to walk the fence in your business. And I don't just mean walking around the studio, though that's important. Walk around your workspace, make sure that you have the supplies you need. Maybe you have a checklist that you use and say, okay, it's the 15th of the month. I'm going to go through the supply closet and I have a checklist. Do we have everything that we need to run this place? Art supplies. Do you have one of the things we just ran out of was memory sticks for clients to give them photos. There are still people who can't accept electronic transfers of photographs. I don't understand that. But they don't. And so we ran out of them because we weren't paying attention, that we were running low. So walking the fence is an important concept when you're doing any kind of office management. You need to be kind of aware of what's going on without stressing too much about it. And that only happens if you do it on purpose. If you're not going to know what's in the supply closet unless you open the door and look. And that's just, don't run out of coffee. Make sure there's some milk in the fridge. Whatever walking the fence means in your business. And don't forget, too, you have some really powerful tools at your fingertips. It's not just walking around with a checklist. You've got a phone. You've got a smartphone that you can actually put these things into. You've got a calendar that you can schedule. You can actually schedule it to remind you of things when they're coming. We just had our sales tax go in this week. And, my phone reminds me the sales tax is due next week. I always go in and schedule it as an event of something I need to be doing, because that's something I do quarterly and I'll forget it often if I'm not paying attention. So use all those tools that you've already got right on you all the time. And I guess most importantly, through all of this issues with organization and with dealing with things that come up and putting out fires and all the things that you have to do as an entrepreneur, as a solo entrepreneur, or a small business anyway, a small creative business, don't ever lose the joy of it. Don't forget you love your job. You're doing this because you want to. It's not that you're stuck in a job that you hate. This is an expression of the greatest joy of your life. Don't ever lose sight of that. And if you've got things in your small business that are starting to make you question that, man, fix them. This is a great, great opportunity to be able to do what you truly love and what you're truly good at. Don't let the small things, don't let those small rocks get in the way of that joy and that contentment. The other thing to remember is, even if you're working alone, you're not alone. There are lots of us out here and lots of us doing the same kinds of things. There are forums, there are organizations. Reach out. If people write to me and have questions, I'm delighted to help. Just because you're working alone doesn't mean you are alone. There are lots of us out there dying to help and would appreciate your insights as well. So keep that in mind as you go through your days and try and keep organized with all of the office management tasks you're facing in your business. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you're having a great week. I am. I'm excited about all the things that are going on in our lives and looking forward to that keeping up, because, as I mentioned, after a drought for a year or so with COVID, it's nice to see some rain clouds again. Hope you're having a good time. Stay creative, and I'll talk to you next week.